I think that's all from what I can remember.
We've got this. I wanted a hand hug. No, just the thumb.
Oh.
Put your hand normal. Put your hand like a normal high five and hug me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've never done that before. The fuck? Did you come up with that or is that a thing?
No, I've seen it before. I'd like to claim it as my own, but we won't.
So the main thing that I want to accomplish is, do you remember that text I sent you about like, hey, these are my 3 things that I have to do?
Likes and yeah.
I have to avoid saying and likes.
Okay.
Or at least keep it to a minimum.
Yeah.
Because I sound like shit when every second word is like. Even though it's a bridging word.
I say it a lot as well, don't worry.
What else? Oh, pay attention to her was number 1.
Why?
Because I felt like a lot of the jokes that you were saying just like went over my head.
They did, especially right at the start. I was like, wow, this is going to be awkward.
Because I think, so what usually happens when I'm having a conversation with someone is sometimes I'm thinking too far ahead about
what's next.
Well, not what's next, but like what am I going to, yeah, fuck it, what's next? And what ends up happening is I'm kind of like in this trance state where I'm half listening. And so if you say a joke that requires a little bit of like at least attention,
like good
I'm not going to hear it properly.
Yeah.
Actually, what keeps happening lately is people keep doing dry humor jokes to me.
And you're not getting them.
And I'm not getting.
So the tables have turned, essentially.
Dryness back to me does not process. Did I ever tell you about this one date I went on? Leading up to it, she was saying something about how if you're gelling with someone or like the sign of a relationship going well, you're going to start adopting some of the traits of the other person. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Before? So she starts telling me this, and I'm like, all right. I mean, in hindsight, I think it was like she was trying to tell me something. So we're at dinner, and she's like, the waitress comes over. She's like, what would you like? And she starts listing all this shit that she wants to eat. So she's at least like selected 5 mains.
Right.
And all of this, and I don't know how to respond. I'm like, why are you ordering so much? And she's like, oh no, it was a joke. I was like,
And you just didn't know how to react to that, obviously.
Yeah, I was just like, I didn't really. What part of that was a joke? Like the waitress is confused out of her mind.
Okay, but can I just say, was she trying to be...
She was trying to be dry.
But like on purpose, because that wasn't funny to me. And like I feel like maybe she was trying too hard. Right.
Well, I don't know if she was trying too hard, but like I sometimes do shit like that where it's like, what would you like? I'll have everything. I'll have one of everything. But I think she sold it maybe too well.
Yeah, right.
Where it's just like you cross the line of being dry where you're acting to be like the extreme version of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. To the point where this is a believable performance of a really, really negative, behavior or some shit. That's what it felt like.
So she wasn't selling the sarcasm as much as you'd like. She just kind of went for it and you actually assumed she wanted 5 meals. Right.
So welcome to the next episode. I don't know if it's the next episode. The last one we did feels like a year ago.
It does. I think it's just like a welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back
to the show. We decided that no other episode should be done in the interim unless we could get Jasmine Peters back.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, based on the feedback that we were getting.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
No, that's cool. When you did it, what were you hearing from like friends and family?
Oh, I think people really enjoyed it in a different light. So like obviously people had listened to some previous podcasts I've done with a company, which was like a lot more serious chat. Whereas this is a lot more laid back and fun and like relatable, I guess.
Oh, fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I enjoyed it so much because you go wherever that goes, and I think we did that very well. And I think a lot of people related to some of the stuff we spoke about, which was really awesome. And it was just a lot more fun and laid back. So I think people respected that a bit more. It wasn't necessarily tunneled down to one topic. So
do you get the thing where you ask like friends or family of what they think, and then they'll not lie, but try and just give you positive? They want to tell you how they really feel?
I feel like most people go that way, but the ones that know you the best know you want that proper feedback, right? Yeah. So I'll say, what did you like? Like even like just on social media, right? Like posting it on Instagram and stuff, like a lot of random people were like, hey, like I really liked that podcast, especially when you said this. And I was like, cool, that's great. You enjoyed it. But where did you struggle and blah, blah, blah. And people actually gave some pretty good feedback with that. So that was really nice. I think that's really nice when people actually take the time to say, this is what I enjoyed, this is what I didn't. So yeah, no, that was good. I think the social media helped a lot with that.
Have you done one of those sport interview things?
Like media interviews from sport? In my time in Holland a little bit, but not really. No, not like full-on professional like TV interview, no.
Did they do it in Dutch?
No, English, thank God. A lot of
hilarious.
people speak English over there, funny enough.
Oh, okay.
Like it's a very well-spoken English country. Like obviously Dutch is their first language, but I didn't really have any struggles with the language barrier except for my coach. So like in a team situation, he was too nervous to speak English, so I'd have a translator and we'd have like hour team meetings where I knew nothing. And then after the meeting, it would be like an hour meeting and then I'd get like, he said this, this and this. And I was like, for the whole hour? They'd just give me like the short version, you know?
He said you were good. He yelled at me for an hour and a half. Yeah, he said you were good.
He said, well done. Yeah, no, so that was really cool. But yeah, the language over there, they're quite good. They're quite good in terms of like English and stuff. I think for me, like Australians naturally speak quite fast. And like the girls in my team would say that when I spoke to someone from home, like my dialect changed so much. Like they'd be like, what? Like you're speaking so fast, like slow down. And then to them, I'd slow my English down a lot, you know? So.
When you're nervous or just in general?
I just think in general, Aussies are quite fast spoken, you know, like, and they speak English, but not Australian English. You know what I'm saying? Like we have our own,
English,
we have a complete other type of English, I think here. But yeah, no, they were pretty good over there actually.
I've always struggled with Australian small talk. I think Australians nail small talk, but I've always felt like you achieve nothing in the conversation, but it just flows really well. Oh, hey, how's it going? And then they'll say something like, I don't have any good examples.
I struggle more on that is when people don't give you anything back. That's what I struggle with because I feel like I'm pretty good at getting people talking in a sense, but you know, people that are quite reserved and it might come across a different way, but they're just quite shy. And you're like, hey, how are you? And they're like, yeah, good. And you're like,
great. Where do I go from there?
That's good. What's new? Oh, not a lot. And you're like, ask me how I am. Like I need something to go with here.
Do you ever just go, fuck it, I'm just going to tell you what's on my mind?
Anyway, so lately I've been more so to friends in a sarcastic way. But yeah, no, I wouldn't do that to someone I didn't know. But do you get what I'm saying? Like I struggle with that sort of small talk more is trying to engage in a conversation with someone that quite clearly doesn't want to engage in that conversation.
I feel like sometimes people want to be in a conversation, but they just don't want to lead it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But then there's this weird spot where you're just like, do I need to balance this out or do they just want to hear me talk for an hour and a half?
I think it just depends on the person.
Right.
Are they shy? Do they not like you? I don't know. It's just I just think we could be.
What have you heard?
Nah, I think it's more just a basis on like who the person is. Like, do you know them? Like I have a best friend who's the funnest person, like when you know her, but like she's very shy off the bat. And sometimes people mistake that for her personality type being like quite standoffish when she's actually so lovely. She's just not someone that can walk in a room and like go approach people and be super excited about that. You know, like she needs people to engage with her and then she'll open up a bit more.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to, I can't think of a better word than navigate, but I don't even know if that works in this context. Where you'll talk to someone, they don't really give you anything back, and it's hard for that impression to not leave like a bad taste in your mouth. Because like, well, if we were kind of enjoying each other's energy, not from like a relationship, just like a conversation with a stranger, if they don't give you anything back, it's hard to kind of go, well, let's keep going and try and make this work.
Let's just try and act like we care about each other right now. Situation as well, I guess. What type of situation are we talking? At a party?
Let's go party.
A party. See, then people are more open to new conversations, I think. There's so much deeper stuff we can go into here. What's their situation? Are they in a bad mood?
What are they wearing? What time of day is it?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, social settings are different. I had a lady, I was walking down the train station the other day, and she literally was just this random, older lady who was sitting by herself and just asked me if my shoes were comfy, just out of nowhere. I saw her actually as I walked down, full on, stare at them. And I kind of stood next to her, and she just turned to me and she goes, hey, are those shoes comfy? And I, a lot of people would be like, yeah, and kind of stand up, and I'm like, yeah, they're one of my favorite pairs. And she's like, oh, cool. Are they expensive? We got on this full on chat, and I felt like we were best friends at this point, obviously. And then we got on our train and went our separate ways, but we engaged in a full on conversation just based off her asking about my shoe, you know?
What type of shoe?
The ones I'm wearing right now, actually, they're just the Pumas, all white.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, really in now, hey?
Obviously catch the eye,
Right.
But that's the thing is people choose in situations. I wouldn't say it's rude, but whether they can be bothered to engage in a conversation like that. Whereas I always feel guilty. I'm always super nice. I'll be like, yeah. And I full got in this mad conversation about my shoes with this random lady who I'm never going to see again. But
how old was she?
I'd say late 50s, maybe 60s.
How did she? So did she say it as you were passing, or were you sitting down? Sorry, what did you say?
I passed.
You passed, and as you were passing,
I'd stopped, kind of next to her, maybe a couple of meters away.
Because you were planning on standing there.
Yes.
Okay.
And then she kind of just kept looking at me, and when you have that looking, what's up, and she just approached with the, are those shoes comfy? And I was like, yeah, they're my favorite pair. And then we got into price, and somehow turned into Black Friday sales and what time of the year is the best time to buy shoes. And all of a sudden I thought I was in a sales role for, Puma, and I don't know how I haven't got a sponsor already, but it just turned into a whole other thing.
Do you think that because she was older and a woman, that it felt like it was okay? You weren't weirded out by the conversation?
No, not at all. I think I was just more of terms of just trying to be nice to a random who had a question. I think it could have been anyone, and I would have approached it the same way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think I would have. Yeah. I think I would have just approached it the same way.
Yeah.
Same, I guess, vibes. She just looked like a nice lady.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? If someone was like, where are your shoes from? In a completely different attitude, I'd be like,
yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. So I wanted to try to do something a little different and actually try to do some research.
Yeah.
On you as a guest.
Creepy. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it felt creepy, but I was like, it was one of the, those websites was like, top 10 things to do if you're going to be a good podcast host.
Yeah.
And at the top was do a good amount of research so you can come to find a topic that, you can discuss or whatever.
No, I like it. I can't wait to hear what you've found out about me.
Well, I just kept finding, there was only 3 things that stood out.
Yeah.
Have you done a Google of you lately?
No, I don't Google myself.
In the following states.
I have Googled myself, yes, previously.
Do you know what the number one thing is? The number one result?
I'm going to say it's to do with my ex.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. That was the main thing that popped up.
Yeah.
Not to do with your ex, but
pictures and stuff.
Apparently you did a couple of articles.
Yeah, we did. We did do a few. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that was the main thing that came up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that came up was, for some reason, I thought this was you. And then I looked at the picture. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, it's not you. There's an NRL player called Jasmine Peters.
Oh, interesting. In Australia?
Yeah. I don't recall what team she was in.
Are you sure it wasn't me? I'm a woman of many talents.
Oh, I don't know. Do you look anything like this?
Yes.
Okay.
That's me.
That's you?
Yeah, no. No, interesting. I assumed X, maybe some softball pics, and then just random people called Jasmine Peters.
Well, surprisingly, you appear in a lot of the searches for Jasmine Peters, which is nice.
Yep.
That's what you want.
Yep.
And then another thing that stood out was, what is this thing? A cap. So cap number 305.
Cap number 305. Okay, so I represent New South Wales Firestars, which is the like top level in Australia. We play nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make that team, so you can play New South Wales your whole life, but if you make the Opens team, you get capped. So same with like Australian teams and stuff, we get a cap number. So I was the 305th player to represent the New South Wales Firestars. And that will forever be my cap number now.
Is it a relatively new like team? Like 305 doesn't seem that many.
But you gotta think as well that it's Opens level. So there's players in my team that have played for 10 plus years.
Oh,
you know,
okay,
so
right.
it's a hard team to get into, especially coming from youth. Like you kind of have to wait for older players to retire to then get into that team, you know, like people stick around for a while.
How old's a while? Like the average retirement age?
I mean, our captain, Stacey Porter, still in the Australian squad, plays professionally overseas. Like she's been, I can't even tell you, a very long time. She's probably one of the oldest in the game now and still one of the best. So you got to picture it like that. There's young players. I think every year there's at least one rookie, at least.
So what, like you can keep going on to like 40s, 50s kind of thing?
I wouldn't say 50s, maybe early 40s. Okay. How the body holds up, you know, girls settle down, have kids. So there has been a case where players have gone and come back after kids. So it depends how much you love the sport. Like right now, I can see myself playing for a long time, but, you know, situations change, how the body holds up, you know. I'm 2 knee surgeries deep now, so they might give out on me in a few years. We'll have to see. But yeah, definitely situational.
As I was kind of doing research.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it occurred to me that I don't think I ever asked you how you got into softball.
Oh.
Like where did that all start?
Funny enough, growing up, I was just one of those kids that did every sport.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always been quite advanced in terms of like understanding the game. So when I was young, I genuine, like I
have the technology.
I just knew what was going on, you know. No, but it was one of those situations where you could throw me into a sport and I quite quickly understood the game. Does that make sense? And I as a kid, I stood out as a young athlete, you know, and it was one of those situations where my sister was playing baseball, younger age groups. The women's league kind of died out for baseball for women. So my mum put her into T-ball, which is the early stages of softball. And I hated it. I did not want to be there, like, at all. Not the sport for me. Like, I was doing netball and athletics as well and gymnastics and all these weird things. And a girl ended up getting injured in my sister's rep team. She broke her arm, and because my sister was already in that team, they're like, can Jasmine just fill in? And I ended up being quite good at that young age. And then my mum kept putting me in it. I was making rep teams. So I played from when I was 5 years old. So I've been playing for a long time now, you know.
So when you were put into that team where the girl broke her arm, how old were you then?
Well, this year, I think, will be year 18 that I represent Penrith. So the Penrith Association for rep level. So I'm almost at 20 years representing reps. So I would have been 6 or 7, which is crazy to me. Like, so in my age group, I'm the longest serving rep player now at Penrith, which is, it's really exciting, but that's purely because I played up an age when I was that young and I've played every single year since. So all through T-ball, all through mod ball, into softball now. I play Opens for Penrith still. This year we play a state championship every year. So yeah, a long time. I would have been 6 or 7. But yeah, getting back to that, the girl got injured. I played reps and I just haven't stopped since. But it's kind of ironic now because it ended up being the sport I was the most successful in, or the one I was driven to choose. And back then I absolutely hated it. I didn't even want a bar of it. Like, I thought it was so boring, you know, but I love it now. It's all my best friends came out of it. It's such a feel good sport. Like, there's no better feeling than being in like a team energy sport like that, and like winning a national championship. Like, we just played nationals in January and we won, and it's just like a feeling I live for every year. It's my favorite time of the year just because, like, to win that championship, you work so hard, and like when you get that, like I would never change any of the career I've had in softball because of that one feeling.
There weren't any other sports that you would have liked to have dabbled in?
Yeah, I mean, I was a pretty good netballer. I was pretty successful in athletics. just things happen and it was getting too much. Like I was like a kid in school going home from school, rushing to like athletics training and then having to go to rep training the same afternoon. And I was just like doing so much. The next day I'd have gymnastics and then I'd have rep training and there'd be netball tournaments on the weekend, softball tournaments the next weekend. And I got to the point where I had to choose. You know, I started working, I had to start earning my own money, I think when I was 15. So you have to make a sacrifice at some point, you know, and I decided, I think it was that year, I made my first New South Wales team for under 16s, which was like so exciting. You know, like there was 90 or so kids back then that were trialing, and to make that team was like incredible, you know, and it was at that point I was like, yeah, like let's go with softball. Let's choose that path. So I stopped playing netball. I stopped playing, doing athletics, which was weird because it was the only like individual sport I had been doing. Everything else was team. And yeah, just pursued my softball career and did some other sports just for fun, like, you know, indoor soccer and stuff.
That's sick. I always wanted to be a pro athlete when I was a kid. That never happened.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a life that is very exciting. Unfortunately, you know, we had a chat about this previously, but it's not a sport that you can do full time unless you're, you know, playing in Japan or America, and you have to be like really great to be over there. You know, those girls are awesome players that are playing over there at the moment. And I've always worked as well as softball.
At what point did you want it to be a career? Or was that just not really a conscious decision? You just kept doing it and you just kind of
It was never like an option for me. Like I knew that was never going to be an option. So I would have loved, it was always, I remember being a little kid being like, I want to be an Olympian.
Right.
When I was in athletics at that time. And that's always been a goal. I want to be an Olympian. Like when you're in sport, that's your dream, right? That's the big time. So that was always a thing, but I never ever was like, I can be like it wasn't even an option for me. Like being a kid, like knowing that it's not even a sport that I can do full time at this point.
But when you were a kid, did you feel like you needed to make a conscious decision to pursue it as something that you would want to do on a professional level?
No, I wouldn't. I wasn't even aware. Like if I'm being honest, it was only till I actually started dating a professional athlete and I really got to get a taste of what that life looked like.
Right.
And I was so jealous. Like I wanted that so bad, you know, and it was so awesome that they got to pursue that career. And it was so cool to see that like women get that opportunity, especially now. Like I think that's a newer thing. That females get that opportunity and she could do that. So like that made me open my eyes a little bit. So I actually made the decision. I think we spoke about it. I went and lived in Holland. So I lived that athlete life for, 7 months and it was awesome. Financially, it's not great. Like I went there and spent a lot of money, like they boarded me and everything like that, but you're not really earning too much. So you can't really do that permanently unless you get a job over there and stuff like that, which I just wanted to enjoy my time and the experience and really focus on my sport. So I just did softball and I did some coaching and stuff to make some money. But so it was that. And as we spoke about, I really sacrificed and made a choice these last 6 months to focus on softball. I kind of looked at my life and I was like, I'm young. I'm only going to be playing softball for a certain amount of time, right? So let's make a decision on life. And I can work for the rest of my life. I'm going to be working for the rest of my life. And it's at the point now where people are older when they're buying houses and getting married and settling down. But I don't want the pressure of any of that. I just want to live in the moment. And I really lived true to that this year. I went on a big trip and then I came home and my full focus was softball. And I was very lucky that the boss and the company I'm currently with allowed me to do that and really give my all to softball. Focus on my rehab after surgery, pursue that sort of pathway. And really the last 6 months, it was all about softball and I was working casually, which I'm so thankful for my boss for that, because not a lot of people get that opportunity. So I was earning a bit, but I was also doing what I really wanted to do. So I can't complain about that,
Yeah. Do you find that that's a rare thing to do in terms of, what your goal is or what you would like your life to be, but you just can't, I guess, you just feel like you either don't know how to get there, or you're too afraid to kind of go after it?
I think it's people struggle to find what makes them the most happy. And like for me, that's been so important this last year. Like, what's going to make me personally happy? Is it going to be chasing a dream? And like, I know that softball was bringing me the most happiness and like feeling like I was achieving my goals and chasing my goals. And I think people sometimes get lost in like what makes them happy, and they settle into life. Like, I'm at this age now and I don't own a house, or I'm not married, or I'm not this. And they settle into something that not necessarily makes them, you know, feel good or happy. And like we've spoke about this, like chase your goal whilst you can. I think do what's going to make you happy in that moment, and like the rest will figure itself out. Like life will figure itself out as it figures itself out. Like don't just settle into something because you feel like you haven't got something in life or you're trying to chase something. So it was different for me, and I changed my whole mind perspective and everything. And like the word perspective in itself was a big thing for me. Like when I'm feeling like I'm changing who I am, I need to like change my perspective on the way I'm viewing negative situations in my life or work or where I'm living or what I'm trying to do, because I'm trying to do what makes me happy. And I think most people need to focus on that sometimes more so than this is what my life should be and I'm not there yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have you had moments where you feel like you've slipped up on that?
No. No.
Fair.
No. So I'll give you this like little thing that I did last year. So in softball, we have like a sports, let's call her a sports psych that we can talk to.
Okay.
She worked with our Firestars team a couple of years ago. I've actually filmed a podcast with her before as well. And like, it was just like during the podcast, she gave me such good advice, like whilst I was interviewing her, you know, and she told me to write myself a letter. Write yourself a letter and just see where it comes. And like, as I started writing, I was really shocked with myself because I really thought it would go negative. Like I'm very hard on myself as a person in general. And I thought it was going to be like a really negative letter. But as I'm writing, it was so positive. And it made me feel really happy. Like this letter I was writing was like very positive about where I was going, who I was. But there was this one particular line in there that was like, Jazz, just go to Asia. You've been talking about it for years. Like I love travel, but I literally wrote those words like go to Asia, like just go do it, like book it and just go. And I found that diary months later and I reread the letter and I was like, read that particular line, like Jazz, just go to Asia. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to do it. Like, why not? Like, you have the savings. I just left the company I was with and I just like booked the tickets 2 weeks and just went. And like, I've been very spontaneous this year. And like, in terms of like, I want to do this, like, just go do it. And I ended up like, I'm so proud of myself, you know, like I read that and I was like, just go. So 2 weeks, booked a one-way ticket, landed in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, with 2 nights accommodation in a hostel booked, and then just like lived every day from then. I had no other plans and ended up spending like 8 weeks just backpacking around, like meeting amazing people, and probably the best experience I've had in terms of self-growth. And like, it just makes you feel good as a person when you actually have a goal or like you say you want to do something and then you do it.
Was that the first time you traveled solo?
No. So I did a little bit in Europe and stuff like that when I was away, and I've done a little bit of South America with a friend, but I've done a fair bit of traveling, but that was probably the most intense. You know, you hear a lot about Asia and like negative perspectives on it and it's dangerous and be careful, but it was the safest I've ever felt traveling. It was the nicest people, the most fun. I never had any problems. And like I was alone a lot. Like I met a couple of really cool people that I would travel with for a week or two here. And, you know, it's crazy because some of them are actually in Australia now. So I have those friendships I made and like.
What was it about the Asia trip that you feel made you, I guess,
so happy?
Yeah.
Because like I just feel like a lot of people wouldn't expect you to just do something like that. And it made me happy when I was walking around and just finding my way. Like I remember playing it so cool to my mom, like, Mom, I'm going to Asia. And she's like, no, you're not by yourself. Like you're a female, you're not going by yourself. And I was like, I'm going. And I was playing it so cool. And I remember getting off the plane, like taking a breath, going like, okay, you can do this. Like found the bus within like minutes, found my hostel almost straight away. And I was like, this is going to be fine. And I remember speaking to the receptionist at the hostel and I just said like, where should I go? Like what what do people do? And then you meet people in the hostels and they say, I did this and this. And you're like, great, like I'll just do that. Or I'm going here. Okay, I'll come with you. Like, and I remember just after chatting with that lady, her English was really really good. And I just automatically felt a sense of like safeness and like, I'm going to be fine on this trip. This is going to be great. And I never had any problems from then.
Right.
Like I've got some crazy stories, but like no danger. Like I never felt unsafe. I never wanted to be like, I need to go home. Like
but
there was
you
nothing
didn't get that same feeling when you're traveling in Europe?
I did. I guess I was younger back then.
Right.
I had more of a plan.
Right.
Didn't really know the hostel life. I kind of kept to myself a bit more. Like I'm a naturally extroverted person.
Gotcha.
But on this Asia trip, like you go sit down by yourself and anyone will just come sit with you. You have a laugh. Like everything's super cheap. Like there's so much more adventure. Like the food, amazing. Like I remember eating in Vietnam, Ari, and it was like a big bowl of pho and like a Coke Zero or something like that. Or I think I had a coconut actually at this point. And it was like $2.30. And it was the best food ever. Like, that's crazy to me. Like,
was it out in the wild somewhere or?
It was in some random.
Seen those photos
it was in some random Vietnamese lady's house. Like, I just walked in and
you just barge in. Hey, it's me. Have you seen that photo? I can't remember where it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was in Vietnam somewhere. But there are restaurants like at the bottom of waterfalls or at the top of waterfalls.
I didn't see anything like that. I didn't eat safe. Like I ate local food. Like people will go there and not eat meat because they're scared or not eat the street food. But I get it. Like, and I got sick once, but I think that was more because I accidentally drank some dirty water when I was tubing. So besides that, like when you think about it, I had 8 weeks there. Funny enough.
Was it 8 weeks?
8 weeks I had there and I didn't get like vomit ill at or ever from food.
Yeah.
Funny enough, my first day home, food poisoning. So whether it was like
the westernized.
No, I'm thinking more I'm living off like rice and soups and noodles. Yeah. And then I came home and had like chicken burger chips, like fully westernized food. And I got so ill that night.
Yeah. Your stomach's like, where's the pho at?
Yeah. Like, what is this stuff?
Emergency evacuation.
Yeah, it was very bad food poisoning. Like, I don't want to say where from because it's one of my favorite food places and I hate that they did that to me and it changed my stigma.
Intentionally, you went there for 8 weeks and business was bad.
The whole time I was like, I can't wait to go home and eat this particular food and I went there and they did that to me. Like, are you kidding me? Nah, but it was crazy.
The Lannisters send their regards.
I should complain. Nah, but I've eaten since and it's been fine. So we're in the clear. But yeah, no, it was amazing and not once was I disappointed in myself or didn't do what I wanted to on that trip and I achieved so much. Like I've always been like, I've been there next place kind of person, but I would 100% hands down go back to Asia, more so Vietnam. Like it's just incredible. Like I'd tell anyone like go to Vietnam. Like it's the best place you'll ever go.
Do you do like much domestic travel?
Look, Australia is a beautiful country and I'm going to be here for my life. Like I know this is where I want to live. Like there's nowhere else I want to live. And I know one day I'll do a big trip around Australia when I'm probably older. I want to see different.
Caravan kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. You know, cliche, look at me, I bought a van kind of trip. But
look at me.
Oh, don't you think? Come on. Like everyone who buys a van, we know it. We get it. You're going around Australia.
Would you do the whole like travel blog thing as you
start a new Instagram page, like Jazz on the road. Yeah. And I'll get like a cat or something to come with me for like company. But.
And then the cat just blows up in popularity. So then the cat needs its own Instagram page.
Yeah. So here I am running 4 different Instagram pages.
The cat needs a manager.
Nah, so like that's a great question because like my nan and pop are English, right? And they always say to me like, why, like side note, my family aren't big travelers. Like not really been to too many places. So especially my mum. So when I said I'm going to Asia, she was like, why? Like, what do you mean? Like, but she doesn't travel, you know, she hasn't been there and done that stuff. So my nan and pop always say, why do you want to go to other places when Australia is the best country in the world? Like you've got everything right here, travel around Australia. And I said, because how will I appreciate my own country if I don't see the other places? Like I want to see the other places and I very much like different. Like I've been to Canada, I've been to America and they remind me a lot of home. They have their, you know, it's different and I haven't done a lot of America. So I'm just speaking of my experience, but you know, you go to places like Europe or Asia and the culture is there and it's so different, you know, and it makes you like see the world in a whole different light. Like I did some really cool stuff, especially in Asia, but then it makes you appreciate Australia so much more in a sense, but also you're seeing what other people live like and how their lifestyle is, and that makes you like be like, oh, okay. Like I remember coming home from living in Holland, going into Darling Harbour being like, this is such a beautiful city. They don't have tall buildings there, you know? And going back to my point, and my nan and pop, they love Australia. Like they're permanent residents here now. They've been here for a very long time, and like Australia to them is everything. Like it's the best place in the world. So I know I will one day do a trip around Australia. I have seen a few places through softball, like domestic travel and like playing games, but I haven't really, like I haven't gone to the Great Barrier Reef, for instance. Like that's a massive tourist place for Australia, right? Like there's just little things like that, and people are like, you haven't even explored your own country.
Yeah, I get that all the time when there are friends, you know, coming over for the first time.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, where should we go? And I always struggle.
Yeah.
Like I take them to the places that I enjoy, but they want to they go, what are the best tourist spots? And I'm just always struggling. Besides the obvious.
To the beach.
Onward.
Yeah.
Welcome to, I can't remember where the hell I took them. My favorite place is actually Hobart.
Hobart?
Yeah.
Okay. When's that?
There was this drive that I went on, and I had the coast basically just right next to me. As I can't remember where I was going, but I just loved how it just felt really intimate, being so close to.
Someone's lacking a bit of intimacy in their life, eh?
No, like that being that close to nature. I don't know. It was really nice.
Yeah.
But it's also got one of my favorite museums, the Mona. Love that place.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
No, that's great. And I think it's like you live in a big city, right? So when you go to a place like that, you take a step back and you kind of breathe.
Yeah, I've learned that I really don't like the whole city life. I don't like big cities.
Why are you here?
I don't know. I'll be on my way out.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like right now, like what I spoke about, you're living this life where like you're doing a lot of stuff for yourself and you're very passionate on like, I want to do things that are going to achieve my goals, which is great. But like, if you're unhappy here, like what's going to make you happy?
Then go.
Then get out of here. Like move to Hobart for 6 months, you know, like, nah, but I get what you're saying. No, I haven't been, so I couldn't offer my opinion on that, but there is some beautiful places in Australia.
One of the things I'd love to do. So one of the goals for me is I'd love to open up a studio of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of getting an office or whatever, I'd love to have a studio maybe somewhere on the coast, like Wollongong or Central Coast or something. I thought that'd be really cool, kind of like somewhere in a small coastal town to do all the things that I do.
So you got me to check out the website the other day.
Oh, yeah, far out.
Because I haven't been on there in a while, and I didn't even like realize that that's how in depth you were going with the stuff, and it was so cool to see because like I've seen it from when you first sort of started it. Not first sort of started, but when I met you, like it was kind of still, you weren't putting a lot of your energy towards it, and it was like so cool to see you like take it on as like a full-time thing, you know, and you said to me like, oh, I'm thinking about getting a full-time job, and I said, no, like.
You're the one person that consistently kind of kept me on path in terms of keep pursuing this thing. Whereas everyone else, or the majority, I'm struggling to think if there was anyone else, but the majority of voices that I was hearing was, maybe keep it as like a small side thing. I don't know if this is going to amount to anything. Because it's evolved and taken so many turns. Because I found really, really old stuff from like 2015-ish.
Yeah.
It was like the very first podcast that I tried. Because when I first decided that this is something that I want to do, it started as a podcast. I'm like, oh, there's things I want to talk about. I guess I should do that in a podcast. And they were so bad. They were just, I felt they were terrible because, it was boring, but the biggest problem was there were things that I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't figure out the right medium or the right way to present it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right to have a conversation of something that I wanted to talk about and then be upset when the conversation goes in a different direction. And it's
Which
like,
is
no,
all
let's,
podcasting.
let's mainly talk about, like, that's not a fair thing to kind of punch for. So it kind of then evolved into like, oh, why don't I try telling stories? And that took a long time to get to. I think that was a 2017 thing.
Yeah.
Where I quit my job because it just wouldn't leave me alone.
Yeah.
There were these, I don't know, ideas or moments that were just constantly in my head. I don't know. Do you dream like this where there are moments that you would like to get to?
I don't know if that's how I think about it. No, if I'm being honest, but
well, that's for some reason that's how I typically dream. It's like there are these scenarios that feel so real, and it's like you wake up and it's like, fuck, I'd love for that to be a reality. And it's quite visual. Like I know what that image looks like. It's presented in the form of an image. Yeah. Right. It's like you look at a painting and it's like, fuck, I'd like to get to that point. So that kept happening and it made it really hard to function at work. Yeah. To the point where I lost like a lot of passion and drive for being a career guy. Yeah. In the sense of kind of living out this corporate career path. And it was just really strange because it was very alien to me not doing something that was obvious. Yeah. Or like going down the path less traveled, or at least what I felt was less traveled for me. It's like, why am I thinking this way? Why do I have this urge? Like there's nothing in my past that made sense that you could kind of go, yeah, like why aren't you pursuing that? It's kind of like you hear someone singing in the shower and then they come out of the shower. It's like, holy shit, you got a good voice. You should try singing. There's nothing in my past that would warrant me having these dreams. Yeah. Or having these visions of what I'd like the future to be. I think it's a great thing,
like visualization, I guess.
Yeah.
But a big thing that you said to me that stuck out that I'll always remember when we probably just had a coffee at work was, I know how passionate you are about DryHumour and that career you want to take, right?
Yeah.
But you were working to achieve somebody else's goal.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was massive. That was a big thing that I've always remembered from you.
You're right. So there was, have you been in a situation where someone's like, what is the reason that you feel this way? And it just feels like there's probably 5 good reasons, but they're all vastly different from each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I say one or do I say all 5 and confuse the hell out of them? Because I don't really know which one's like in the lead.
Yeah.
So that was a big one.
Yeah.
Where, I don't know. It's like you step out of the matrix or something. Yeah, one of the things that I felt twice now.
Mm-hmm.
Once in that old job and once again in the recent job, where it felt like I was serving, I don't know, I was at a piece in someone else's puzzle, or like I was working towards someone else's dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have these dreams and they felt great. And then it's just like, well, why don't I try and make these dreams become a reality? Like that would feel amazing.
Yeah, that's what's going to bring you happiness, right?
Yeah. I'd love to articulate it properly. I feel like this has come up so many times in the past where people have, or I've wanted to talk about this change or like how I feel, but I've just never well articulated it. And so I'd love to spend some time to like maybe write it down or like maybe properly explore it.
Put it in a book.
Yeah, why not? Why not? An autobiography or something.
Yeah.
No, but I love how it feels. I love what I do. It's challenging as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's gonna work out, but I feel like I'm doing. That's the fun of it, though. I feel like I'm doing, but it's better than the other end of the stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's better than feeling like, oh, what if? Feeling that burden of, fuck. It would have been cool to have seen whether I could have
Or at least tried to see if it was going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's been maybe 4 or 5 major twists and turns where what I'm doing now is very different to what I originally set out to be or to do.
And that's a good thing, I think.
100%. Because I didn't know that I would find so much joy doing what I'm doing now. And I don't think it's like I really like the quality of the graphic novel that's going to be coming out. I really do. But now one of my drives is I want to become a better writer. I want to become a better storyteller. I want to keep doing better. I'd love to talk to other creatives and understand how they go about evolving their work, because it's not really something I thought about before. When you think about writers or people that create stuff or do anything, do you feel like you're improving?
Yeah.
Or does it just feel like you achieve a particular level and you just pray that you don't get worse?
Calling out to the public, asking for a friend.
Shout out.
All creatives, please stand up. No, it's a good point, and I think that like change is good. If you have a goal to get to here and there's a lot of side notes and stuff, it's going back to that same thing. You're meeting new people, you're learning different things, you're changing this. Everything's for a reason, and I think you need to view things like that in a positive sense of, I thought this is where it was going to go, but it ended up here and it's super exciting.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that has really helped is trying to make as many, I want to say future decisions as humanly possible. Like there's 2 active projects, but I'm trying to, I don't want to be in a position where, and I know you we were talking about this before, but there's been so many times where I've been in a spot where you do something and it's like, well, now what? And then it's like, fuck, I need to fire up the think engine.
Yeah.
Where like,
or you've achieved what you'd set out, and it's like, well, what's the next step?
Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I've got a pipeline of stuff that I want to do like immediately afterwards, and I'm doing little things to kind of chip away at it. So it's like, well, once these are done, I can immediately go into it, and I can learn from these things and apply it.
Yeah.
To the future projects. But there's enough stuff floating around in my mind that'll keep me busy for the next like
100 years.
Few years at least.
Yeah.
A lot of it's challenging shit. Like I've got a couple of films that I'd love to make.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I'm going to make them, but I'd love to.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah. But you were saying that you're feeling, which I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, because you've got this amazing goal of being an Olympian, and I'm sure that has. Actually, I don't know what the steps are to get there. But you were saying you felt like a little lost about it.
Oh, not a little lost in terms of like growing up, that was always a goal of mine. Like last year I set myself some really big goals, really high bar, like let's just put it back to the sport for a second. Like I lost myself a little bit the last couple of years. Like I went through.
That's right, yeah.
I went through 2 major knee surgeries, and like I didn't realize, as an athlete, when you something gets taken away from you that makes you the most happiest. This is just from a sports perspective. Like you kind of lose yourself, and I lost myself a little bit in that. And, dating a professional athlete, I didn't realize it was kind of taking a toll, because like my goal then became that goal, and supporting that goal. And like as much as I was working for my rehab, it was so mentally draining, and I never realized till after the part, and I made a decision last year to kind of look at my life and say, okay, like what can I control? What can't I control? Like I've done my second knee, like people will give up at this point, and it comes back to that like mindset again, like what's going to make me happy? And I realized how hard it was to watch my team go and play nationals and not be a part of that. It's really tough. And I kind of sat back and said, okay, so like how can I get there this year? So I was working so hard on my rehab, so hard. And like, I'm not going to lie, it was so draining. Like I wanted to give up. Like I'd already done a whole year of it. And then to have the same thing come in and knock you off your feet, it's so tough. And I was just kind of looking at my life and I said, I need a break. So I still had big goals, but I went and did that trip. I did as much rehab as I could overseas to keep fit because I was coming home basically at the end of the rehab where I would be doing fitness testing and I needed to be ready for that. So I came home and gave myself a few weeks to, pass all the testing and everything. And, first goal achieved to get back in that team. The second goal was to win nationals. And the third one I told you was to make that SummerSlam team, which a lot of people don't understand how much that meant to me, like sitting there, I said the year before and watching the girls out there, this new exciting thing, like a big change had just happened in my life. And I was just so jealous and like heartbroken. And I remember watching them sitting there with my like bad stitched up knee thinking like, I want this so bad next year. And like to achieve that this year, just the feeling of getting your name in there was incredible because I've looked at my life over the last year and like all those goals are now over, like all the things I'd set myself out last year, I've now passed that point. So I don't think it's necessary. I'm feeling I guess I am feeling a bit lost as to where to next. But I just made a big decision to not go play overseas this year. I'm going to settle into saving up some money. I want to achieve other things in life now. Still got massive goals in softball, obviously, but going in a bit of a different direction this year. And I guess I was at that point where what do you do when you haven't set yourself some new goals, but the ones you were working towards are kind of over? You feel a bit like lost. Like, have you ever had that where you...
Yes. So the biggest lull in my timeline was when Friendzone Island had finished. Because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I didn't plan until well after, and it was as a result of what am I doing now? Like it was such a tall order because I never planned on making a film. It was something that kind of one thing led to another. I always thought it would be cool to do one, but it wasn't like cool. I can't remember when it was, but October 2018, making Friendzone Island, and then we're doing this, and then this. That came way later. Friendzone Island was a big eye-opener for me in terms of what I could potentially be doing.
Yeah.
So Michelle Heyman, who's like a mutual friend, introduced me to May, who I worked on the film with, and then it was only during Friendzone Island where for the first time it crossed my mind that, I could be a storyteller.
Yeah.
I can like go out and make other things. But it took a while to action that or sink in. Like it felt great knowing that, but for some reason I just hesitated.
Yeah.
Because it was something that I'd never done before. And it was just like, is this like a good thing to kind of set out to achieve?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, fuck it. Like, why not? It'd be really cool too. So like, let's give it a go. And then as I started writing new material, I just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Going back to the whole visualizing, that kind of gave me a bit of a drive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but basically when I felt like I was back to, square zero, I just kind of went through a list of things that I thought would be cool to do, and then just let that help guide me. Because all of those things had end states. And I still had that goal of the studio and where I wanted to be in 5 to 10 years. but I just didn't have anything in the short term to strive towards.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with a roadmap of stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like, while I'm doing these things, I think just like you, I oscillate between being really passionate and feeling like I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
To like extreme self-doubt, and it's like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then you're just constantly bouncing back and forth. And I just thought it was funny that you said that, because it's rare to kind of hear that other people go through that as well.
Oh, I think it's such a huge thing in humans. Like, naturally, as much as we might feel like we know exactly what we want, we're on track, we're feeling good, like you can wake up the next day, and I go through this so much. Like, this is a weird time of the year for me, you know, and I look back at everything I've done over the last year and I feel proud of myself, but then I start self-doubting, and like, you put yourself in a really bad headspace. And I just think as humans, we're so hard on ourselves sometimes. I know me personally, I'm sure you are too. Like, I get so hard on myself. And I actually spoke with someone the other day, which was really nice. She's just like kind of like a mentor, but kind of reminded me that there's no timeline on being at a certain place with your mental health or your mindset or your goals. There's no timeline on it. So just because you may feel like you've reached a point in your life where you're like, I've got here, that doesn't mean you can't feel a certain way again or go back, you know. And people put pressure on themselves, and me personally, like, there's no timeline for me to be at this point in my life. Like, it'll happen when it happens. And although it's okay to like be down, and it's okay to like have those days where you're not okay. Like, I still have that every day, you know. Like, I've been at very low points in my life where I recognize when I'm heading that way, and I felt like, oh, I'll never be there again because I've been there before and I'm very aware of that. But like, sometimes you feel like that again, and then I get really down on myself. I'm like, why am I like feeling this way again? And I just think it's the same thing. Like, humans, there's no timeline on achieving something and then staying with that, you know. And when it comes to work and your goals and everything like that, I think we just get a bit caught up in it sometimes and be like, okay, well, I've done this, this, and this, but this has gone wrong, and now I feel like I'm back here again. Does that make sense? I feel like
It does. I feel like, at least for me, it's sometimes like the magic word, like. But in this example, I think it makes sense. So it feels like when actually, no, it doesn't work. When when I have a certain expectation and it's even mildly off, that's when it hits me.
Yeah.
The doubt. Even though it's something that I could probably fix, it's nothing that crazy. There's just you know, when certain things come to you and it's not exactly the way that you imagined it or expected it to turn out, it's like, oh, fuck. But I'm definitely getting better at seeing the bright side of it. Or it's not even like it's something negative. It's just, oh, here's a new challenge I need to deal with. I wasn't prepared for that. But now I've got to address this.
Yeah.
And just being able to immediately kind of fight it. This is what I'm going to do about this.
Yeah.
Like, for example, sometimes when I give a brief out and then I finally see, I always get nervous when creative comes to me. When artwork comes back, I'm like, please be good. But all the artists I work with are fantastic. So nothing negative to say about them. But I'll look at a page and it's like this one frame isn't exactly the way that I thought it would be. Or sometimes I'll get a graphic and yeah, it's not 100% right. I need to kind of take 5 seconds so that I can let the expectation just really get out of my mind.
Yeah.
Because it's just getting in the way of dealing with, well, is this actually good, or am I just being like unnecessarily
hard on yourself?
Hard on this, yeah. It's really strange. It's really odd to be in that position because I feel like I've spent years dealing with a lot of subjectivity, like being on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So I'm really sensitive when it comes to working with, creative people.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can go wrong really quickly. I used to do a lot of graphic design stuff, and working with people that are giving you briefs can be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times I feel like people don't really know what they want. They'll have a very, very, very vague idea of what they want, but 9 out of 10 times what they see comes out as surprise.
Yeah.
Because it's like, just do what you do. A lot of detail is missing because they don't know what the hell they're looking for. And that's fine because it's rare for you to know exactly 100% what you're looking for to the point where you articulate it to such a degree that it would be hard for them to not produce it correct.
Yeah.
Not correctly, but produce it exactly the way that you want it. So I feel like I've gone to like maybe above and beyond what I should be doing in terms of guiding the artists that I work with to bring certain frames or graphics to life.
Yeah.
But I don't want to impede on the creative process at the same time.
So what you're saying is they give you an idea, you feel like you sort of steer them a certain way to help that come to life.
Flip it.
Okay. So then you feel as though it takes away, in a sense, from the creative process because it's almost changing from what the actual original visualization is.
Yeah, so think of it like, I don't know, what's one of your favorite books? Storybooks.
Storybooks? What do you mean storybook?
As in, like, I don't want you to say, like, oh, the autobiography of Steve
Harry
Jobs.
Potter.
Oh, Harry Potter, great.
Let's just go with Harry Potter.
So, did you read the Harry Potter books before the movies came out?
No, after.
Okay. Is there a book that... Damn it. Okay, fuck it. Okay, so let's say you read a novel.
Yeah.
And you're visualizing the story in your head.
Yeah.
Okay. Now imagine if the way that you're visualizing it is completely different to what the author intended.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because she doesn't need you to actually produce a visualization that's to her physical creative vision.
Yeah, yeah.
I need that. But at the same time, I'm really curious about how they're visualizing it without me specifically detailing what to visualize.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're writing, I feel like a novel, there's a lot of descriptive, there's a lot of lines to help you visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a warning? Do we need to get the hell out of here? I feel like that was a warning. But anyway, there's a lot of lines to help you visualize the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not to the extent where you've literally read a page that says this person's here and they're wearing a blue shirt and they look like this, and like describing it to the length where you're just like, Jesus, I get it. Like, calm down.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of try to dabble in that so that there's something to go off, because I think the worst position to be in is they put in a lot of effort into trying to artistically visualize a scene,
mm-hmm.
and it's not what you intended.
Right.
Like I think when you're doing visual storytelling, like you have to go to that depth.
Mm-hmm.
My not issue, but what I'd love to see is what are they imagining if they don't have that that level of detail? Because I'd love to know.
Yeah. What
are they visualizing when they don't have all the descriptions? I'm really curious because it might be able to like help grow a scene, because there may be something I didn't think about.
Yeah. Has there ever been a situation where you've had to like bail out on working on a project because of that, the difference, the like creative differences? And
yes, but only one, surprisingly.
Yeah.
The one, and then another one that I came close, but there was surprisingly there's a lot of artists where, and I don't know if this is the norm, it feels like it's the norm, where you kind of got one shot. You got one shot and one shot only to get the brief right.
Yeah.
And then whatever they give you back, you have to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't stand that.
Yeah.
Because it makes me really nervous. And it means that this brief needs to be so tight that they're going to make exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And I really, really don't like working that way. Not that I need 100 revisions to get it right, but I feel like the creative process requires a little bit of back and forth. You know, like there's steps, there's stages to it, thank God. You have, very, very rough sketches. And that's my favorite stage because that really helps being able to visualize it. I do a bit of storyboarding myself, but because I'm a shit drawer, like it really helps when someone else is like a decent drawer and they can actually sketch it out.
Yeah.
And they're still rough, but it really helps to properly visualize the scene.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, now that I kind of see it, let's make these kind of like adjustments. Yep, that's looking great. I need that. It really, really helps. But some people, it's just like, no, here's what it looks like. We're done here. And I don't work well
Make
with
this
that.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the artists that I work with now. They're really talented. They're super supportive. Like it's really nice working with other people that you work well with.
Yeah. And the same passions, I guess. Like you're all trying to achieve a common goal, right? Like
I mean, to be honest, the thing that bugs me about freelancers is that the common goal is the project. And yes, it's paid work. And I think that's the main drive for this studio. I want DryHumour to grow because one of my dreams is to build a team. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's just something missing. Like I don't like the isolation, and I love what I do and I love working on it. I love the creativity of it, but I would love to share this with other people.
Yeah.
As in the creative process, the
You'll
production.
get there.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
Finding other people that love, making things and and love the
They're
brand
doing it
and
because
wanna
they
add to
enjoy
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Not because they have to. I mean, okay. Just to backtrack real quick, the artists love the projects, and I'm not taking a dig at them or anything, but it's just like in terms of like a long-term kind of thing, like they're obviously going to go off and do other things. But yeah, the appeal of building a team means that I don't know,
you want to be the boss.
Not that I need to be the boss, but it's just like, it's just like at when we used to work together. It's really fun to work with.
When you cross into different teams and like we did a few things together when I first started and it was really fun. Yeah. You get to throw around different ideas and we think completely different, which was interesting. But
I forgot about that.
It was cool though because it kind of slowed me down a little. And as much as I was like, Ari, come on, let's get it done. Because I'm a fast thinker. Like think of it, do it. You like to read into it. Why are we doing this? Well, let's change it to this. And like us, I think we kind of helped each other in a sense because like you slowed me right down and made me think about things a little bit differently. And I also helped you kind of get to your points of what you were thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember that because that was the first time we worked on a project together. And because at that point, I'm pretty sure we were friends. And
I got past the DryHumour stuff, so I started to realize what you were trying to do.
So I actually forgot about that. I forgot about that. So I've actually been like really enjoying this. I know that we've pivoted quite a few times.
Completely pivoted.
And I wouldn't mind doing one of those 3-hour podcasts, but I think we do need to wrap, unfortunately.
We do. Time flies when you're having fun in here, I think. And I think we've done a good thing here today.
Fantabulous.
Shall we do our awkward high five like last time?
Oh, yeah. I actually still have the footage of that.
Yeah.
But the high five is out of frame.